Hi, my name is Miriam Kaczor and thanks to Neat and Blad for inviting me to share this video. It's a peculiar time to be doing this because, like so many people around, I've been substantially deprived of the ability to do a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about. But with the amount of reflections, thoughts and ideas that are perspiring, maybe it's kind of healthy to be put under a little bit of pressure to translate these rambling thoughts into words that will hopefully make some sense outside the comforts of my own head. So I'm originally from Poland, but I spent most of my life in Dublin. I'm primarily a flautist and I also take photos, and both of these things have been a part of my life since an early age. I started taking music lessons when I was 6, then did my bachelor's degree, which is also when I started experimenting with early music. Then after finishing that, I worked freelance for a few years, happily dividing my time between modern and historical performance more or less equally. And I was blessed with a lot of wonderful opportunities in Ireland and abroad, getting to meet and work with some really inspiring artists, composers, directors and mentors. And then last month I relocated to Vienna to where I'm studying for a master's degree. And onto the photo side of things, I think the oldest vivid memory I have of taking a picture was on a family holiday in Slovakia when I was 8. We were hiking through the mountains and I saw this red mushroom, and asked my dad if I could take a picture of it on his film Minolta camera. So I lied down on the ground to get as close as possible to this mushroom, and I remember just looking at the sun shining through all the trees above, and I was casting all kinds of shadows and little spots of light and colour. And I just remember thinking it was so cool. I actually have the picture here. It doesn't look as magical as it is in my head, but I was 8, so don't judge me. Here it is. Here's the mushroom. So then, for a couple of years, I went around borrowing my mum's crappy Sony Ericsson phone, and I took pretty weird pictures of stuff until my parents bought me a little compact camera for Christmas, and then my first film camera. So these are some of the first photos that I was kind of taking with a little bit more thought behind them, I guess. And yeah. And I was around 13 when I discovered Flickr, which at the time was like an Instagram for nerdy kids all over the world, who uploaded photos that they took and wrote nice comments to each other. And I devotedly stalked some other guys my age, like Olivia B, Chrissy White and Michael Bailey Gates, who are all like photographer superstars now. But I put a few things up there myself and was really positively encouraged, and so I kept on photographing my friends, sometimes made them dress up in very questionable outfits. I ran around my estate wearing equally questionable outfits, taking pictures of myself on a tripod, so apologies to all of my neighbours. So here's a few photos from then. That's a tree I liked to visit when I was in school, and this photo, I was so happy with it when I took it, and I went to show my mum, and she got really pissed off with me because apparently, well, fair enough, going into an abandoned house by yourself as a 15-year-old probably isn't the safest idea, so don't do that. Yeah, and a few more here. And yeah, there was a period of time when I rarely left my house without a camera. I was just so obsessed with keeping a photo diary, and spent all of my pocket money on film and developing film, which I still do, except now I don't get any pocket money. So here are some of the photos of some diary-like photos of my friends back then, and things. And at the start of college, I made some clumsy attempts at taking photos of my musician friends, and then went through a bit of a hiatus. I wasn't too happy with a lot of them. I was quite underdeveloped technically, and it just felt like taking pictures lost its charm of spontaneity. But I still documented a lot of personal things, and then a few years ago I fell in love with taking portraits again, and started taking it a little bit more seriously. And some photos I took for a festival that my friend organised. Here's another batch from a concert promo, and a few more personal things. That was a long introduction, but the purpose of this video is actually to share a few thoughts about my relationship to these two art forms and their relationship with each other in what I do. So on a basic level, they are both things that I get very excited about, that often bring me to beautiful places, and that I get to meet a lot of really interesting people through. At the same time, you have to be good at being by yourself, because practicing and editing photos both require literally hours spent in a room by yourself. I could compare them on two planes. First is the actual moment of taking a photo. Sometimes it's not obvious to me straight away why I wanted to take a picture of something, or why the person I'm photographing looks more like themselves this way or another. It's just like an urge. Oh my gosh, I need to take a picture of that now. And then you look more closely and start noticing that maybe it's how these shapes and colours work together, or how a person looks at something, moves their hand or smiles, and you really try to bring these little things out and frame them in a way that that captures the feeling you or the subject had when the picture was taken. And when working on a piece of music, sometimes phrases and passages work instinctively, but it's so much fun figuring out what it actually is that gives a tune its character. It might be the articulation, the pulse, a certain sound colour that works with the harmony, or a dynamic that you decide to use. There's such different means of expression, but for me they're kind of indispensable because of that difference. With classical music, be it early or modern, the creative aspect takes on quite a different form. if you're not a composer or making and putting your own music out there, the majority of the time feels like an inspired, inventive and skillful process of recreation. So it's almost like if you took a bunch of photographers out to the same prepared set, gave them the same instructions, time frame, equipment, and obviously they're all going to see and capture it differently, probably all really beautifully in their own ways, but it's not, it doesn't give the same kind of fulfillment as coming up with an idea and realizing it independently. On the other hand, the performative act of music creates this special, intangible, emotional charge. So I believe as a performer, it's almost like working and preparing to create a moment or a little passing journey for the audience. Whereas taking photos is discovering and interpreting these moments quietly by yourself, that someone might then relate to quietly afterwards. One thing I find fascinating and kind of therapeutic about looking back at my own pictures after a while is that over time, as you process things, you start seeing patterns. So while it might have been completely subconscious at the time, in retrospect, it's so apparent that what you look at and what you decide to look at and what you and how you look at it is directly influenced by maybe what you were going through at the time or your general state as a whole. And with music, it's revisiting pieces. It's playing something again, learning something again, listening to something again. It changes. That's also, that can be a little bit dangerous because it stirs a lot of sentimentality, which I guess can hold you back from things at times. And then there's the finicky work, especially with portraits, culling, cropping, retouching, colour adjustments, which really remind me of technical practice and can be equally meditative. I've always been drawn to things that are a bit more manual and slower in process, old, and hence my persistence using film and period instruments. Both of them have this really personable quality that you just can't fully replicate with contemporary digital equipment. I've also dabbled in darkroom and alternative hand printing techniques, which is very informative for any kind of photography. The same way that I believe traverso playing informed my approach to modern flute. It's a humbling process. Personally, it took me some time to openly nourish these two separate outlets, and I'm lucky to know a lot of really versatile creatives now who do amazing things, and that motivates me a lot. In a way though, I wish I found that determination early on to care for and really start developing both sides consistently. And this is just a very general observation, not applying to any of the wonderful, supportive individuals and progressive establishments that I've encountered along the way. But I think that the way a lot of traditional music, classical music institutions work or function, doesn't always prioritize encouraging people to work on themselves as expressive beings, to dig and push beyond the physicality of their instrument. And I think that as soon as you neglect some expressive part of yourself, you know, as a passion hobby or a passion business or whatever, you not only end up feeling unsatisfied, but in cases it can even make you a lot more vulnerable to things like mental health problems or addiction, which in my experience is unfortunately not uncommon in our industry. So I really hope that this enterprise or platform that Yonid and Vlad have created will encourage more people to pursue and nurture whatever passions they have, put their sensitive selves out there and find a binding peace within. So thank you.